Hey everyone, welcome back to Bobini Creates. My name is Jeannie, and today I'm working in the Grimm Fairytales Special of Coloring Heaven. This issue is illustrated by Nellie Shoemaker. So what I'm doing here is I'm going in directly on the page, coloring on the page with the turquoise blue Neocolor II. And basically what I want to do here is just to get a base layer going. So I'm coloring it in lightly and getting all the places where I want, the color of her dress in the turquoise. And then I'll go back with a regular watercolor brush. And what I'm doing here is just activating that with just the smallest amount of water. You can see I've got just a few droplets of water in that little lid. And so what I do is I dip it in that and then I tap it on my cloth just to make sure I'm not getting too much on the page. So that's what's going on here. So I like to use water brushes as well, but I feel like I have a lot more control over the amount of water that goes on my page when I go about it this way. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So this is issue number 104 of Coloring Heaven. And I have to admit that the reason that I chose this page was because of the pumpkin. Yeah. So I realize it's not Halloween, but I thought, that pumpkin looks so realistic. So while it's not Halloween per se, I feel like it still kind of represents. So anyway, that's why I made that choice. And here you see me, well, first of all, you saw me drying the image with my heat gun just so that I could put on another layer without it being wet. So what you see me doing here is I'm taking the color directly off the crayon. And truth be told, this is actually my preferred method of using Neocolor II. I just feel like it's allows me to have a richer color onto the page, and I feel like again I have more control over it. Yeah, so you'll see me do that more often than not. I do color directly on the page as well. It just depends on if I want a light base coat or kind of the look I'm going for. So the title of this page is Good Fae Cinderella, and I thought it was a nice option. I'm so used to the Fairy Godmother, the older version that we're used to in the original Disney animated movie, and I just thought this was really cool. I think it's fun that she's a younger Fairy Godmother, or in this case just called Good Fae, and she looks sort of elfish, I guess. Is that the right word? So it's been a really long time since I've read through any Grimm's fairy tale stories. I used to read those, or my mom would read those to me as a child, and I'd be curious to know how she's described in the actual story. I don't remember. If any of you guys can remember, I would love to hear if you want to leave that down in the comments below. Otherwise, I'm definitely going to look it up. I just think it'd be interesting. So throughout me using the Neocolor II crayons on this page, if you don't see me actually dry the color, just know that I'm walking away and letting it dry on its own, because you don't ever want to put another layer, wet over wet. You also don't want to use your pencils or anything else over the page when it's still wet. Okay, yay! I'm finally getting to put the base layer on the pumpkin, which was my favorite part, what I wanted to work on all along. So I'm going over the whole thing with the orange. Again, these are all going to be Neocolor IIs. So I'm using orange, and what you're seeing me do here is I have a smaller brush and I'm just picking out the edges and the smaller bits with this smaller paintbrush. Okay, and then after I get all these smaller areas, you'll see me go in with a larger brush so I can get, broader strokes going. And for some reason, I don't know why I did, I chose a flat brush, like more of an acrylic brush, And I really should have grabbed for a watercolor brush. You know, that would have been nicer on this paper as well. I kind of feel like those acrylic brushes are a little more substantial, and I feel like they're not as kind to the paper. I feel like it didn't pill, but I think it would have been a better option to use the appropriate brush. So this is just the lightest of the colors for the pumpkin. So we'll just go ahead and get that whole base layer down, and then I'll go back in with some darker colors, you know, just to add some interest, and I'll tell you what those are. So looks like I chose ochre, vermilion, olive, and russet. So um, in that order on the page. So I'm going in, just kind of trying to pick out the areas that would benefit from some shading. The areas around the stem would be, you know, a good place for that. Around the vine, the little folds, I guess, or recesses in the pumpkin, just to add some dimension. So I'll do that with all three of the colors, you know, in varying amounts. And on some of these, you'll see me paint them in directly off the crayon. And on some of them, I'll go in, you know, and color directly on the page, just kind of depending on what I'm after. So just continuing with that process. I don't know if you guys are like me, but there's something like super satisfying about coloring a pumpkin. And I think it's just all the different colors that are involved in it and just trying to make it look realistic. But yeah, and also that they're brighter colors, and I think they're happy colors. So I don't know. I really love fall colors. The other thing I think that's cool about using the Neocolor IIs is that they have a lot of earthy sort of color, so they're perfect for this. I mean, in this instance, I didn't necessarily want bright orange or whatever, you know, and this allowed me to pick out all those rich earthy colors, and I end up really liking the way it comes out. Now, you know, I'm putting the base layer down, but you'll see me later on in the video. Actually, at the end, I'll color the pumpkin with the Prismacolors. But yeah, I'm liking the way that's coming out. And you'll also see sometimes you'll see me dabbing with a tissue, and that's just because I felt like I got a little too much water on the page. So I'll just continue to activate the color here with my water. And as long as you're drawing, like I said, in between the layers, you can kind of go back and forth and deepen where you need to, add more shadow where you need to, that type of thing. It'll actually allow you to get quite a few layers in, even on, you know, this non-water watercolor paper. And I think that's what really makes it fun to use the Neocolor IIs, is you can just keep playing with it until you're achieving the look that you really want. Now, in a second here, I'll be starting with the stem, and I basically am using the same colors that I used in the pumpkin. And I like to do that on a lot of my images, whether I'm using Neocolor II or whether well, really whatever I'm using, but pencils especially. Um, I think it's a nice look if you can sort of bring in some of the colors throughout other elements of your page. If you can incorporate those, I think it just sort of gives it a nice unified effect. So um, yeah, I like to do that. So just continuing here with the stem. So I have to tell you, I colored this and I recorded this yesterday, and but I didn't do the voiceover until the following morning. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I was so scared that I just had this image in my head that those vines were part of her hair. If you can see how long her hair is, and it kind of, you know, swirls down behind the pumpkin. And I just got so worried. I was like, oh my gosh, tell me I didn't color those as vines when it was really her hair. And so when I got up, I got my coffee first thing, but then I could not wait to look at this picture just to like relieve my apprehension that I didn't color it the wrong color. So thankfully it was indeed the vine, it wasn't her hair. You can see the way it's attached to the stem and kind of swirls around, but oh my gosh, I was scared there for a hot minute. Oh my goodness. I do you guys do that where you wake up in the middle of the night and worry about stupid things? That's me in a nutshell, you know. And I don't know why I do that, but hey, it definitely helps my insomnia, you know. So anyway, so we'll finish up the vine here, the pumpkin, and then we'll just sort of walk away from that for a little bit to leave it to dry. And then what we'll do is we'll go in and bring out the Prismacolors and work on her face here. So the colors I'll be using on her face are the light peach, peach, nectar, henna, espresso, blush peach, and rose. And that's also the order that I'm using them in. So what I do is I start with that lightest color and I put that over all of her face, neck, hands, and then I go back in with the next darker color, which is the peach, and I pick out some areas that would be shaded, but a little more than that. I want to give her, you know, a little bit more color. And then I go in with the next darker color and so on, kind of reducing the amount of pigment that I use on each of those darker colors. And in between using those various colors, I will go in with a lighter color. You'll see me go back and forth. And that's just to sort of blend those layers and take a look at it and see, you know, what I need to improve on. So that's, you'll see me use quite a few different pencils. This is, the face is a smaller image here, so it's sometimes a little tricky to get everything accomplished that you want to on these smaller faces where portraits are I don't know that they're more fun to work on, but they're easier to get the look that you're going for, in my opinion, because you just have more area to work with. So anyway, I like doing skin in pictures though. It's fairly enjoyable. I'll say that's probably what draws me to the coloring heaven issues in the first place, is that there's just so much variety going on. You're introduced to all different illustrators. They all have completely different styles. And then in working through those books, you get an idea of what illustrators you prefer, what styles you like, and I appreciate that. I like being able to change it up from time to time. I don't always want to color really intricate pictures. I don't always want to color people, for example. But with those Coloring Heaven magazines, I just feel like there's going to be something that fits my mood in one of them, pretty much. The other thing I like about them is just that they're not precious necessarily, at least to me. So I feel like I can go in and try different things. I feel like I can play with different art supplies. And in the end, you know, sometimes I'm going to mess up. Sometimes they're not going to be perfect, but I feel okay about that because again, it's not precious and I can try different things. It's kind of a little coloring playground in a way for me. And I'll tell you, sometimes I've worked in it and I've found different things that weren't maybe the look that I was going for. I can remember specifically using these kind of pearlescent watercolor paints, and they were sort of opaque, and I think they sort of gave it a an overbearing look. And the good thing was it was practice in one of these pages, and now I know that I want to use that a little bit more sparingly. You know, I want to be careful about where and how I apply. I still use it and I actually love those paints. But, you know, had I not had that experience, and I botched up the page, I'm telling you, it looked horrible, but I learned from it and that's, you know, valuable in my opinion. Oh, and speaking of those pearlescent paints, I'm thinking about using some of those on the sort of magic swirls on the page. So I'm not sure how well you can see at this point, but like for example, that's stemming from her wand and then, behind the little mice and then that swirl that comes up from the pumpkin and away from the pumpkin. So I don't know. If you have an opinion on that, let me know. But I thought that might be a good look. And if you do think that might be a good idea, tell me what color you think I should use. There's a part of me that thinks that maybe I want to use like a real light pale blue, because I feel like the magic's coming from her, so to speak. So, maybe, she's sort of the blue good fairy on this page. So maybe her magic should be blue also, but I don't know. I don't know that that matters. And then I think what I'll do is the rest of the background, I think I'm going to use acrylic paint in a darker blue, maybe a navy blue, just to look like the night sky. But we'll get to that in part two. So I'm pretty sure I can finish up this page in the two parts. Um, no problem. So I think you may even see me come back with the background done. I don't know. That is to be determined. So what I'm doing here is I've got my Prismacolors and I'm just going in and doing the shading on her outfit. And the colors I've used are light aquamarine, and cobalt turquoise. So I'm using a mid-tone here, just going over the whole thing. I know she already has color down, but I tried to come up with the color that basically matches that Neocolor II. Putting on another layer, and it serves a couple purposes. It smooths it out, and I didn't have to do that, but I like the look of it, number one. And also, I feel like when I add the other shades, when I go to blend, I feel like it sort of moves the pigment a little bit better on the page. And at least it does, it seems like it works that way for me and makes for a smoother transition, so to speak. So that's what I'm doing here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just go in with the darkest of those three shades and just sort of pick out some of the areas that I want to be a little bit darker. Some of it, the outlines or bits up against her hair or under her arm or whatnot that I think would benefit from a little bit more shading. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I'll go in, I'm trying to remember, I'll probably go in with my mid-tone again and smooth that out. And then finally my lightest color. So we'll just finish up with the turquoise here. I'll let you watch that with a little bit of soft music, and then I'll come back to you for the next step. Okay, moving on to the wings. So I wanted this to look sort of translucent like, and so what I'm putting down is the lightest of the aqua color that I used in her dress. So this was actually light aqua, and I'm just putting down a really fine light layer, so it has that sort of translucent look to it. And then after I get that in, what I do is I go in with the next color, the mid-tone, and in this case that was aquamarine. And what I do with that is I just go around and I outline a bit. I try to pick out the different sections and sort of go over those a little bit to make them just a little bit darker. If there's a place where the little sections meet, or maybe they're like kind of like veins, wherever they meet and there's like a little V in that area, I'll kind of deepen the center of that V, and just for a little bit of contrast and interest. So I think my plan is, after I go ahead and get everything else colored on the page, I think what I'll do is I'll go back in, and my plan is to use like maybe a holographic craft paint or something to go over the top that gives it a shimmer. I just think that might be sort of a pretty light look, which is what I was hoping to keep these just really, really light and translucent, kind of like little delicate insect wings, that type of thing. So now I'm going in with my white Prismacolor, and I'm just blending that over the top of all of it so that it softens the look and brings those colors together. And so far, I really like the way that's coming together. And it's really sort of what I pictured in my head, minus, that I haven't yet added the shimmer to it, which I think will really bump it up a notch. So I'm looking forward to adding that. I always love the sparkly, accent type bits. Those are always a blast to add to a page. So, so far so good with this. I had thought about initially using like a different colors for the wings, but in the end, I just thought it would just be better to keep things simple and, the same color, basically. Oh, cool. And now we're doing the two little mice that end up turning into coachmen in the story. So I love the way that they're sort of being tossed up in the air with the magic of her wand. Isn't that funny? They're just sort of flying around up there. But what I used for their fur was the 20% warm gray, and then what I did there is I just put that around, the outside of the body and the legs and whatnot. And then I came back in with 50% warm gray, and I just hit the very ends, for a little bit of shading and contrast. And then after I hit those spots, I went back in with this time the 10% warm gray, just to smooth all the layers out. And so what that does is it leaves the center of the body, with a bit of a highlight on it. After this, I go in with the blush pink, and I add a little bit to the nose and the feet. Okay. And then what I'm doing now is I'm working on the wand, and I've used three colors there. I've used the burnt ochre, chestnut, and dark umber. So just a combination of those three. The darkest color really more towards the bottom for that shading, and then going back over it again with the burnt ochre to smooth it out. And we've moved on to the hair, and I decided to make more of a blondish look. I thought that would go with the pumpkin. Well, really all the colors going on here. And so what you'll see that I'm using here is beige, goldenrod, and sienna brown. So I'll just go ahead and work those strands in. I'll let you watch that, and I'll meet you back in a moment. So now I'm going in with the darkest shade, actually a fourth color, and that is the dark umber. Just kind of picking out areas that I thought would be in the shade, or around the chain that's going across her forehead and behind her ear, just to give it a little bit of dimension as well. I think I may have edited out, the rest of the hair bit. I don't recall. We'll have to see. But I'll let you watch that. And then the final bit will be working on the pumpkin, my favorite part. I was going to mention on the hair, it looks like I went back in with a fifth color, final deepest color, and that was sepia, I believe, along her face and some of the deepest shades. Sorry about that. I didn't catch that earlier. So now we're working on the pumpkin. Yay! So going from darkest to lightest, the Prismacolor combinations that I used here, I used a sienna brown, the pumpkin orange, mineral orange, yellow orange, and sunburst. So we'll just watch the rest of this, and I'll continue to put on some soft music. But before I do that, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. So please let me know if you like this style of video. It's different for me. It's a bit more work, but I think for some of these more complicated videos or longer, coloring pages where I intend to show you the whole process start to finish, I think this might be a good way for me to continue moving forward on those. So once again, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye, everybody. I'm working on part 2 right now. I'll get that finished up and edited and out to you real soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.